Well, 12 o'clock on your Tuesday afternoon now. Welcome in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Terry Ford will be along here in just a moment. So we navigate through our holiday week. Again, no shows on Thursday, but we'll be here tomorrow as well as on Friday talking all things Clemson, getting you set for the Palmetto Bowl to wrap up the regular season for both squads and see what the postseason destinations end up being for Carolina. And again, we're going to learn a lot tonight with the release of the latest college football playoff top 25 poll on just what exactly Carolina's ceiling is. And if there's a chance to make the playoff based on what you do this weekend and maybe some chaos around the country once again as well, or if we're just kind of squarely looking at maybe a Florida bowl game at that point in time. So we'll learn a lot tonight and obviously react to that tomorrow once those do end up coming out. I think it's interesting now that we are turning our attention to Clemson this upcoming weekend. And again, that game is always in the back of your mind, right? Because coming at the end of the year, and especially in the past decade plus, Clemson has always been perennially one of the better teams in college football, and you know it's not going to be an easy task. But I think about the fact that this is probably, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Firehouse Subs text line 803-404-6100, maybe the most confident the Carolina fan base has been going into this game, and really since the end of the winning streak back in 2013. Because at the time, Carolina was the better program, winning more games, the multiple 10-win seasons, all that kind of stuff. And right there at the end is when Clemson started to rise after they lost to Carolina in 2013. They still played, I believe, Ohio State in the Orange Bowl, and obviously in the years after that, obviously went on the run to go to the playoff, go to national championship games, and the whole 9 yards. And really, in the past decade, there haven't been too many meetings between these two teams where it seems like they're very much on equal footing or close to that. And this year's going to be different. We anticipate this to be a top 15 matchup. You know, Clemson will probably be 12th or 13th. Carolina will be 14th or 15th, something along those lines, with both teams still having high aspirations for the college football playoff, and both teams playing good football. Carolina's a lot more battle-tested, and I think right now the better team than what Clemson is. But nevertheless, I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be a tough, tight game, as you expect a rivalry game to be. And I think we're going to get treated to four good quarters of football that if Carolina can come out on the other end and get a little chaos, and maybe talking about that win vaulting them potentially into the college football playoff. So a lot on the line this weekend, and what, again, has kind of been one-sided one way or the other for the better part of the past decade plus. And this year, kind of feel like two teams looking at each other pretty evenly.
Difficulty.
And their two toughest opponents in Georgia and Louisville are the games they lost, and the Louisville score doesn't look as bad as the game actually was.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Louisville was smacking them all over the field. And Georgia just, stomped on them like a lit cigarette on a sidewalk. So they only have 2 losses, but it has been the most daunting schedule in the world. It just feels like they're losing momentum as a program. Now, there's that big announcement today about their NIL stuff, right?
Yeah. But
that's where they got to get. I mean, I don't know if you ever if there was some come to Jesus with Dabo or whatever, but, whether it's true or not, 'cause perception can be reality at times, it looks like you're a program living in 2010. It looks like you're a program that doesn't want to jump on board the train that you have to if you want to be successful.
Well, and look, Dabo Swinney, now that Mac Brown is not going to be coaching anymore, we'll get to that in a little bit, he and Kirby Smart are the only 2 active head coaches in college football with national championships. Yep. That's worth something.
And think about this for a minute. Dabo's got 2.
Yes.
Kirby's got 2.
Yes.
And that's it.
That's it.
Think about that for a minute.
I know. That's insane. So, again, his pedigree up to this point is certainly warranted, but as Chris and I brought up a little bit earlier, since NIL became a thing, since the transfer portal has opened up even more in these past couple years, Clemson has been good, but they're still not thought about right now as one of those best 4 or 5 teams in college football like they were from, 2016 to about 2020?
Think about this. The last time Clemson played Georgia a few years ago, remember that slobber knocker?
Yeah, 10-3.
Close game. you watch both teams. You thought they were on the same level, right?
Yep.
Ish.
Oh, people were saying this is going to be a rematch in the playoffs. Didn't end up happening.
Watch the game that started this year. Did
Different
Clemson
story.
belong on the same field as Georgia?
Didn't look like it.
That's the point. Clemson's a good program, but they're not a level anymore because Dabo hasn't moved into the new world. But how about this, Tyler? They're a good program. How much better could they be if Dabo jumped on board?
Well, and that's got to be the frustrating thing if you're a fan of that program, because, again, coaching, good. The talent level that you recruit, very good as well. And, again, for a while, they were an NFL factory, putting guys in left and right at quarterback, wide receiver, defensive line, all that kind of stuff. Took a little bit of a dip, not a huge dip, but still not quite on the same level that you were a few years ago. And you're looking at these guys in the transfer portal saying, man, we could use that guy. But Dabo's up there saying, well, none of these guys are good enough to play at Clemson. Like, everybody in the fan base knows that's BS, right? Like, everybody else is using the portal to their advantage. It's got to be driving those people crazy that Dabo's not willing to do that because, again, they've been good, but how different could they have been? How much better could they have been over these past 4 years if you add in, 4 or 5 key players at spots that maybe are a little bit weakened that could have put them over the edge?
Only people that totally buy into Dabo's angry man screaming at clouds are the hardcore Dabo swingers, right?
How many of them are there?
Out there is as many as there
question.
used to be.
Because
I feel like you just said something I thought was interesting. One of the biggest problems with Clemson these last couple of years has been their offense. Not this year, but in the last previous years. What if you'd have went in the portal and got a couple of wide receivers? Or
probably would have helped.
went in the portal and maybe looked at your quarterback situation when you had DJU and Klubnik until this year and said, maybe we can do better with a veteran quarterback, get some veteran receivers to augment our really good running game and our excellent defense. Where could you have been?
Yeah.
You could have been in the conversation.
Now, again, Klubnik has played better this year, but look at where you were last year, saying, man, go out there and find a Cam Ward in the transfer portal or something like that. He could have taken that offense to a much higher level.
Look what Cam Ward has done at Miami this year. Transform Miami.
Yeah.
But he wasn't as good as Klubnik, according to Dabo.
Apparently not. Now, again, Klubnik has taken steps forward this year.
He better.
He was literally the reason they won against Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago.
50-yard touchdown run.
50-yard touchdown run.
Here's my question to you, though. If we're doing a pickup game of football, you taking Ward, you taking Klubnik?
I'm taking Ward.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I mean, it just feels like Clemson has lost momentum as a program because, again, Dabo has decided to die on this hill. South Carolina, think about it. What has helped transform this football team this year?
The transfer portal.
How is South Carolina keeping players?
NIL.
Yeah. See? And so this football program, and to be fair, you have a mix. Because Dabo, you can have a mix. Lennar Sellers wasn't a transfer portal guy. He was recruited right down the road, came in, sat a year. This whole season's been about the development of Lennar Sellers to go with all the transfer portal additions that you have.
Well, think about it from the Sellers' perspective. Like, okay, redshirt freshman quarterback, what does he need? He needs a better offensive line, needs a run game, and needs wide receivers. They addressed all that in the transfer portal. Now, the results weren't exactly what you wanted. Rocket Sanders, obviously been a great running back. Offensive line,
I mean, Simpkins has been your best offensive lineman coming out of the portal.
Lineman, but still, the line as a whole has not been exactly what you wanted it to be. And then the wide receivers, these past couple weeks certainly been better, but nobody's stood out and become a wow guy by any means. But still, you address those needs in the portal to help out your young quarterback.
That's what the portal's for. You take a step back. Okay, we've recruited the old-fashioned way. We're developing the old-fashioned way. Where are the holes? Let's go fill them in the portal. And that's really what the portal is for. And the NIL is to hold on to your guys like Sellers or Dylan Stewart, another one that came through the old-fashioned way, high school recruiting.
Yep.
So, again, Dabo, bro, you can use them both. You can still do it the old-fashioned way, but you just have to understand to, piece your weaknesses together through the new world order of the portal. And then the NIL keeps your players. Because you know what? If you don't care about the NIL, you know who does?
Everybody else.
Everybody else. So we'll see with this new announcement that Clemson threw out today, what's going to happen moving forward with the Tigers. But you got to get with it. You just got to get with it, man. And we talked about that before. When Dabo and Clemson were on such a run, and you have so much momentum, and just think if Dabo would have embraced the portal, embraced NIL.
I think they'd still perennially be a team that maybe probably won another national championship between now and the last time they made the playoffs.
Yep. I mean, you could go sell a quarterback. You want to be the next Trevor Lawrence? Want to be the next Deshaun Watson? Be a first-round pick?
Because what he's done there is built a brand. And again, I know he played the cliche for a long time. Little old Clemson, they were little old Clemson back in 2008 when he took over. He built them into a national brand, a national powerhouse in college football that, again, to a degree, sells itself. Saying, hey, come play for a coach with 2 national championships and one that was at the time producing NFL talent after NFL talent at the quarterback spot, it seemed like, as well as other positions. It writes itself. It sells itself. And again, the fact that they were resistant, or Sweeney was resistant to want to embrace that, has hurt them.
Yeah. I mean, that's the sad part. If Dabo would have jumped on board, he could have kept his momentum going. Now, again, he looks out of touch. He looks like, that the old guy in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
That, it's just,
look,
it's.
And I'd be willing to bet if we polled all 134 FBS coaches on their honest thoughts on the portal and NIL and stuff like that, the majority of them would say they hate it. They say, I don't like the fact this is what college football is, but you know what? If I want to be successful, I got to lean into it. I got no choice. I mean, some coaches are really into it, and some coaches go, all right, I got to do it, got no choice. It's like that honeydew list on the weekend. I'll do it, I got no choice. On that list is transfer portal and NIL. It's the world we're in. It's going to be an interesting week. Very interesting week. Rivalry week. Sponsored by our buddies at Columbia Craft. We appreciate them very much. Green Street and the Vista. All right, so I was out yesterday. Nice work, you and Jack. Appreciate you guys for helping out. So I'm driving back. Stop in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Okay.
There's a Chick-fil-A. Love some Chick-fil-A.
Sure.
Hit there, dig the waffle fries. I'm all in. Go in, and when you order in, they give you that little thing with the number on it, and you put it on your table.
Yeah, right.
So I got a sweet tea, got my little number thing, got some napkins, I got a receipt, sit on the table. It's like a table that would seat 4 people. That's all they really had in the place. So sit down. All right, I'm go run to the bathroom real quick, wash my hands, whatever. Come back out, walk over. There's a family of 4 sitting at my table.
Oh.
My tea's there.
Yeah.
My little number thing is there. My napkins, my receipt, they're sitting there. And I walk over, I go, I believe that would be my stuff. Let me grab that. Oh, would you like your table back? I go, no, they're tables. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Not mad, nothing, right? It's like, whatever.
Sure.
So I go around to the next table on the other side, put my stuff down. Then I look at my little number thing is not with me. So I turn the corner, my food's there. The guy's opening my chicken sandwich.
Oh.
So I grab his head and beat it on the table. No, so I'm like, oh, by the way, I believe that's my chicken sandwich, too. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. He goes, you sure you don't want your table back? No, I just want my food.
Yeah.
It's like, and so I took.
That's the ultimate sin, stealing a Chick-fil-A.
I know. And then, so I'll finish the story on the other side. But, yeah, dude's gonna lift my sandwich, him and his family. Anyway, I'll finish this up. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Weirdness on the game. All right, so this low testosterone thing's quite annoying, quite aggravating. You're a guy getting older, and you're just like, I don't sleep the way as well as I used to. I'm not as strong at the gym. I don't bounce back from workouts. I can't remember stuff. I don't have any life drive. I don't have any sex drive, professional drive. I'm driveless. I've got no drive. And you're concerned. What's going on with me? And the worst thing to do is just go on some kind of rabbit hole of health stuff on the internet, then you'll drive yourself insane. It could just be low testosterone. Just call 803-875-MENS. Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Set up an appointment. Go in. Tell them your story. If they think it's low T, they'll put you on a program specifically designed for you to get you back to feeling like you again. 803-875-MENS. Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Make the call. Go in. It won't cost you anything to get a consultation. Halftime show, Terry Ford and Tyler Head. Rivalry week is here. Clemson and South Carolina going at it Saturday. We get started 7 a.m., baby. From Mission Control here in the studios at 107.5 The Game in Columbia. We'll have our local pregame show up until 9. Network takes over with Chris Miller and the crew. Noon kickoff from the upstate, South Carolina, Clemson. And, of course, once we get to the network pregame, our affiliate in Myrtle Beach will join in at 100.3 The Game. I'll finish the story. So, if you just jumped on, go into Chick-fil-A in Harrisonburg, Virginia, get my stuff, sit it on the table, which includes your little number things where you can bring your food, go to the bathroom, come back, family of four sitting at my table. And my stuff's just sitting there.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, they're like, oh, do you want us to move? No, I'll just go to another table. You guys get comfortable in my chair. Don't worry about it. So I go around the corner. I'm not mad. There's another table. So then I turn around, realizing that my food, they just brought my food to that table. And so the guy is unwrapping my chicken sandwich, which in about 22 states.
Now he has hands on it?
Not yet. He had it on, you know how it has the packaging?
Right.
He's opening the packaging.
Okay, so he hadn't put his hands on it yet.
Now, again, in half this country, legally, I could beat him to death and get away with it.
I think that's justified.
If I said, Judge, he tried to eat my Chick-fil-A sandwich. Oh, he did?
You're all free.
Case dismissed. So I get my food and I go sit back down. And again, I just want to eat. I'm cool. I'm not mad. Take my seats. I got my food. I'm fine. So the girl that brought the food comes over, right, 5 minutes later. Sir, I'm really sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I said, what'd you do? I sat the food down there. I got confused. I go, you didn't get confused. I go, they sat in my seat. You didn't do anything. You're fine. You're okay. And she's like, thank you. I go, you're fine. Don't worry about it. It's them. It's not you.
Yeah.
So I'm eating. 5 minutes later, manager comes over. Sir, I just want to tell you that I'm really sorry. That I felt like saying, if you're really sorry, why don't you give me like coupons for free Chick-fil-A for life? If we're really all upset about this.
How much can I milk this?
Right. Hook me up. Because I thought to myself, I said, no, everything's good. I said, you guys did nothing wrong. Don't worry about it. But then I thought later, man, if I would have pitched and maybe threw a fit, could I have got some coupons?
I'm sure there are people that do that.
Yeah, but it was funny. It's like I've never had anybody just come sit at my table before like that.
Yeah.
And my stuff is sitting there. And you know, again, if you thought, okay, some dude left his sweet tea and took off, but I had my little thing with the number.
Yeah. Well, see, I'm the kind of person, if I see anything on a table at a restaurant, I'm assuming somebody just left. I usually let them come and clean it off first because they'll like run a rag over it, wipe off the crumbs. I don't want to be sitting there, with other people's crumbs and stickiness from their drinks and stuff like that. So, I'm not going to sit down at a table that already has something on it anyway, but especially, if I know how this works and there's a number, it means there's food coming here. That's probably not the best idea.
Just really weird. It was so weird. But yeah, I thought later, man, I should have milked that. God, I could have got some free stuff out of that. Maybe a free milkshake.
Maybe if you call back today.
Second thought.
By the way,
I'm really mad now. I'm in Columbia, South Carolina. I've been thinking about this on my drive.
I've been stewing on this for 24 hours.
I want free coupons, or I need to talk to the district manager. It was just, I've never had anybody take my seat like that before, ever in a restaurant.
This is why I just get the drive-thru and eat in the car. Eliminates any of that.
All right, it is rivalry week here on the game, and we're giving you a chance to win tickets to this Saturday's game in the Upstate. Two different ways. You can show up at the post-game show with Jay and Elijah today, 3 to 6. Say, hey, look at all the cool stuff going on at Cato's Power Equipment Beltline in Columbia. And then just fill out a little entry form. Leave it there with our folks. And you're done. Or if you can't get out there, we'll be at the Nest tomorrow, the halftime show.
Yep.
Come out there, look around all the cool things going on at the Nest, fill out an entry form. That will get you qualified to win tickets, not only for South Carolina Clemson this Saturday, the football game, but the men's basketball game, South Carolina Clemson, and one of the baseball games, South Carolina Clemson.
The remainder of the Palmetto series, pretty much.
So you just pop out to the post-game show today between 3 and 6, or with us tomorrow noon to 3, and you have your chance to enter to win tickets to all 3 of those Carolina Clemson games. We throw the women's game in as well, but they already played.
Yeah, and can't go back and change that.
And that game was at Clemson.
By the way, Carolina leads the Palmetto series 2-0-2 so far this year.
Look at that. How about that? So that's what we're doing. So feel free either today, post-game show at Cato's Power Equipment Beltline in Columbia, or come out to the Nest tomorrow between noon and 3, Gadsden Street in the Vista. Come hang out with us. All right. As we continue to look at, obviously, the Clemson-South Carolina game, the bigger picture also is the college football playoff. Now, the BCS computer has South Carolina, I believe, sitting at 14.
Mm-hmm.
The old school BCS computer rankings. Ahead of Ole Miss, but behind Alabama, which I find quite interesting.
See, and the BCS rankings, because again, you take the human element out of it, they're just looking, they're crunching numbers. Head to head didn't always matter to them.
Right, and that's obvious with this is because I think you and I were talking about this earlier today. South Carolina obviously loses to Alabama and Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
So conceivably with a head-to-head, that would matter if you both have 3 losses. All of you have 3 losses, in theory.
Yes.
But obviously South Carolina is playing better than both of those teams right now. And you can make a case, okay, you go to Tuscaloosa, you had Alabama beat, and you didn't finish the job.
Right.
Ole Miss came here, and they beat you.
Yes.
And they, again, and it wasn't close. So in our world of, the old transient theory world, you played a really close game with Alabama on the road and lost barely. You played Ole Miss here and got beat relatively soundly. If you're going to go ahead of any 3-loss team, it'd be Alabama.
Yeah, because their loss to Oklahoma is worse than any of what your losses are.
Well, think about this for a minute. They lost to Oklahoma. You whooped Oklahoma in Norman. They lost to Vandy. You handled Vandy pretty easily in Nashville.
Yeah, now I do think that head-to-head should matter a lot at the end of the day, but the committee has shown precedent with having Alabama 4 spots ahead of Tennessee last week, despite the fact Tennessee won that head-to-head, and Carolina being ahead of LSU a couple weeks ago, first time they jumped in the playoff rankings, despite the fact that LSU won that head-to-head. So it's not impossible, but that's definitely 2 hurdles you have to clear, because assuming everything's chalk this weekend and Alabama beats Auburn, Ole Miss beats Mississippi State, which isn't a given, then you're having to jump over those 2 teams to be that next team in the college football playoff, which is easier said than done, though you do have the chance to do that against a ranked team this weekend.
So if you can handle your business and beat Clemson on the road, and then you need massive chaos part 2.
Pretty much.
You got massive chaos part 1 last week. But here's the problem. You need so much massive chaos. Some of that massive chaos can also come back and slap you. Like, for an example, Alabama losing and Ole Miss losing, your first thought is it helps you in theory, but it also hurts you in some ways as well.
Well, and much like last week where, BYU being ahead of Carolina, they lost to Arizona State, but Arizona State might actually jump Carolina this week because their win last week was better. So, again, you're helped by BYU losing again, but you're potentially hurt by a ranked team behind you winning against a ranked team in front of you.
So now you got to root for more Big 12 chaos.
But again, there's always going to be one Big 12 team that's going to get in ahead of you anyway.
You just can't let 2. That's the point.
You can't let 2, yes.
You got to make sure the Big 12 is such a mess, only one team gets out of the Big 12.
I'm intrigued where they put Miami tonight, because you could be in a situation where the ACC might get 2 teams in. If Miami's, say, number 6, and they theoretically lose the conference championship game, then you're talking about SMU and Miami being in.
Because if you have, 2 one-loss teams playing in the ACC championship game?
Yes.
Let me ask you this. Okay, let's say pick each of whatever one you want to see lose. Because neither one's resume is super strong.
No, but Miami's ranked higher than SMU is.
So let's say SMU loses to Miami in the ACC championship game. And let's say Miami smacks them pretty hard. Do you take a 2-loss SMU who got the ACC championship game and really don't have a crazy signature win, or are you going to take a 3-loss SEC team?
That's why we have a committee.
That's the fun. Okay, in case you just woke up, here's what's going on in the sports world on the Halftime Show with Terry Ford, Tyler Head. It's Rivalry Week, sponsored by Columbia Craft here on the game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Okay, in case you just woke up and you're like, well, what's been going on in the world of sports? Well, Mac Brown got let go today.
Yes, he did.
Well, he's going to finish out the year, and then he's gone.
It's so weird, right? This whole season for UNC's been such a roller coaster because they had that awful early loss to James Madison where he, and we don't have a recording of this, but allegedly in the locker room said something to the effect of like, you guys want me to quit now? If y'all aren't going to be any better than this, maybe I should just go ahead and leave and retire or whatever. And, they said, no, he'll come back. And, it seemed like it was kind of teetering for a while. Like, yeah, okay, he's back, but he's probably going to be done after this year. Then, like, last week, they're like, no, wait, he's coming back next year. And now he's fired, is going to resign. I don't know what the correct way to phrase this is. Weird year up in Chapel Hill.
Yeah, and, they were 6-4 going into Saturday during the week of when he said he's coming back. And then they go and they went against Boston College. Now, if you won that game and you're sitting at 7-4, you had a little momentum for NC State, a team that has not been very good all year. Then you win 8 games again, like he typically has been in North Carolina, 8-9 win seasons. I don't know if he stays or not still, but you say you're coming back, and then here's what you heard from the administration. Nothing. Usually they'll back you up, right? We're really happy that Coach Brown's coming back. We love him.
Get that nice letter from the AD. We're excited about the future of Tar Heel football and all that kind of stuff. Nothing.
So that was my first red flag, is you didn't hear that support from the administration after Mac Brown said he's coming back. Then you go out there and you get beat by a BC team that should not beat you by 20.
You ever seen that movie Identity Thief with Jason Bateman and Melissa McCarthy?
I've heard of it.
Well, you've probably seen the meme of Jason Bateman. It says, the blank you are.
Yeah.
Where Mac Brown essentially says, oh, I'm coming back next year. The blank you are.
Yeah. So, I understand. Mac Brown's going to be 74 years old next year during the season.
Yes.
And at some point, you have to move on from Mac Brown. If this year was going better, he would probably be back. Maybe you start doing that weird coach in waiting thing, whatever. Because, look, here's the one thing. Yes, Mac Brown, at some point you have to hire another coach not named Mac Brown.
Yes, you do.
But since Mac Brown started winning in the early 90s at North Carolina, his first time through, then you add the second stint. Mac Brown has 13 winning seasons.
Mm-hmm.
From when Mac Brown then left, before he came back, that lump of dudes, the Larry Fedoras, the Butch Davises, the Carl Turnbushes, or where the hell his name was, the John Buntings, combined had 13 winning seasons. Mac Brown had North Carolina ranked in some way, shape, or form 11 times in his tenure. Those guys, the lump of dudes, combined 8. So basically, the only way you've gotten this right since the early 90s was Mac Brown. The rest of it has been, okay, nothing special, but all right. So why don't you try to get it right for a change? Because you can't bring Mac Brown back again when he's like 90.
No, and that was the interesting thing, when it was thought that he was coming back for another couple of years, because I think his contract runs through 27 or 28 or something like that. It's like, okay, and I've said this before, I understood why they brought him back. Again, the program's not in a good place after Fedora left it. You brought in a proven veteran head coach to get your feet back underneath you, get yourself in a good spot, in the upper to middle ground of the ACC, and then, okay, well, let's move on from him and let's bring somebody in here that can take this ship for hopefully the next, 15 to 20 years. But with Mac Brown staying on, and similarly to the recruiting thing with Spurrier years ago, everybody's using that against you. It's like, well, you think he's really going to be there by the time you're a sophomore or a junior? Like, come to us instead. I'm going to be here, or whatever it may be. And I'm sure that was ammunition being used against him, and it only ramps up when you have what happened earlier on this year with maybe I should just retire or quit or whatever it may be against James Madison. That's only making it worse. And again, you can't really come back from that once the toothpaste is kind of out of the tube. Where they go from here, I have no clue. This isn't a Texas situation where Will Muschamp was the theoretical coach in waiting, though that obviously didn't end up happening because they had to kind of pry Texas out of Mac Brown's fingers at that point in time. You don't have a head coach in waiting on the staff. You're going to have to go outside and hire someone. Who that is, I don't know. Now, it's thought that the North Carolina job is pretty attractive because you do have resources there, usually allocated towards basketball. But if you got a good enough program, can go towards football. I don't know. I'm intrigued to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I mean, and Chapel Hill is a beautiful campus.
Good, fertile recruiting ground in the Carolinas.
You got the triangle there. There's a lot of stuff to do. It's a growing area. You should feel like North Carolina could go get someone good to take this gig. Remember, Mac Brown in 2020, North Carolina goes the Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
And he's been to bowl games pretty much every season at North Carolina. He has every season in North Carolina, and they'll go to one this year, too, because they've got 6 wins. Remember, they're always on the cusp. 2022, 2023, they won 8, 9 games, but remember, they were like, 7-0, 6-0, something like that. And then they went at the end of the year, 2 straight years.
Yep.
I remember 2 years ago, South Carolina saw him in that opener. God love it. They're still sacking Spencer Rattler, and he's a saint.
Right.
So, they started off fast for a couple straight years and then ended on a downturn. So I think people bought into, ooh, here we go, North Carolina, baby. And then it just went, usually because the defense sucked.
Yeah.
So I think there was also this thought of, ooh, we're close with Mac. We're close with Mac. And then this year they had no quarterback. Kind of Max Johnson was going to sort of be their quarterback. He got hurt, and they just haven't, In some ways, the fact that they're bowl eligible with all the weirdness that's going on there this year is almost like, hey, way to go.
Yeah, no, it's very clear when they don't have a high-level quarterback, they're a much different program, which you can say that for a lot of teams, certainly. But it seemed like Mac Brown, and I go back to before the season even started, when it did seem like Max Johnson was going to be their quarterback, Mac Brown was outright saying, I guess we're just going to have to run the ball more this year. Clearly didn't have confidence in what he had, in his quarterback room. And, you look at their recruiting, they're not really doing too well right now. So there was a lot of optimism outside of just raiding the portal in the offseason that this was going to suddenly get better next year.
Yeah, so you're going to go and hopefully taking a program that has been successful under Mac Brown again. Now just go get it right. Just go get it right now. Because you were okay without Mac Brown, but obviously if you look at, again, the numbers we just went over, since the early 90s, the one guy that's been consistently winning in North Carolina was Mac Brown.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Also, if you just woke up and realized there was a Monday Night Football game, the Ravens beat the Chargers 30-23 in the Harbaugh Invitational.
The Harbaugh.
Yeah. That's such a bad name, isn't it? Harbaugh. It's just, but Ravens win. It's funny. If you ask me who I think's a better football coach out of the two, I think Jim is.
Yep.
But Jim can't beat John. And John's good. Look, I spent a lot of years
John's
around.
the younger brother, right?
Jim is.
Jim's the younger brother.
Yeah, John's the older one.
John looks older. Or John looks younger.
I know, but John's the oldest. Jim's younger.
Can't beat your
beat him.
Older brother.
I mean, John's 3-0 against Jim. But I think Jim's the better football coach.
Yeah.
And that's not to say John isn't. John's a good football coach. I think Jim Harbaugh is one of the best football coaches in football, period, college, pro, whatever.
I agree.
But again, the Ravens last night, yes, Lamar Jackson is having a phenomenal year as a thrower. But the key to that offense, to keep it balanced, is turn and give the ball to the biggin.
Mm-hmm.
The biggin got it 24 times, ran for 140 yards last night. Ravens ran for over 200. Lamar, a quarterback rating of 126, threw 2 more touchdowns. That's their formula.
Yep.
But really, offensively, push it aside. Unless the Ravens step up a level on defense consistently, they're going to fall short again. Because it's all about winning a Super Bowl now for the Ravens.
It's great that you can score 40 points. Don't give up 38.
Exactly. All right. Firehouse Sub Text the Hours next here on the Halftime Show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head on the game. Shane Beamer's presser coming up here at 1 o'clock. Shane, obviously, we'll look back a bit on the Wofford win and looking forward to Clemson on Saturday. It is Rivalry Week, sponsored by our buds at Columbia Craft, Green Street and the Vista. We appreciate those folks. And, of course, every day, our little get-together, sponsored here by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. All right, time for our Firehouse subtext, the hour, 803-404-6100. What do you got, man?
Greg, looking out for your well-being, says, Terry, remember, it's South Carolina Clemson, not the other way around.
I did say Clemson, South Carolina once. I did. Thank you, Gregory.
Got to make sure you put the.
I'm sorry. I appreciate you, man.
First.
I appreciate you, Gregory. Thank you very much. Every now and then we slip. Thank you very much.
It happens. You know, we only talk for 90 hours a week.
I know. Every now and then we're going to slip. Thank you, Gregory. I did it, and I kind of caught it in the back of my head when I did it. I was like,
It's one of those things, because you'll hear it interchangeably outside of this bubble. But, yes, it's supposed to be the preferred team first.
Yep.
You can always be, save best for last. No, and these kind of things, it's always preferred team first.
We appreciate it, Gregory. Thank you very much, man. I want to throw out, since we, we look at Twitter polls and stuff like that this week, and we're going to have them this week, obviously. But our buddy Elijah Campbell did a really good, and he's going to do these all week long, little videos about, the top moments in the South Carolina-Clemson rivalry. And he put up his first one, and he looked back on the win 2 years ago. Puts together a nice little montage, little video thing, little voiceover, just give you back a nice warm memory of a South Carolina victory over Clemson. Again, that is on 107.5 The Game on Twitter.
That was actually 2 years ago today.
Yep.
Exactly.
How about that?
That might end up in the greatest day in the history of the world later.
It just might. I tell you, that was one of those days where it was like, after beating Tennessee, because, we were stunned by that.
The entire college football world was stunned.
Never forget being in the press box, watching that, going, are we going to wake up? Coming off the debacle in Gainesville, getting whooped by Florida, and then going in there and just curb stomping Tennessee, and Spencer Rattler just went insane. Coming off of that, you were like, they could go to Clemson and make this interesting. Then they got down early. Rattler had the turnover issues early, and they had the pick six. If I remember, down 14-0, and then just methodically rolled through that game and just took control of it and won. And it was a cool scene on the field where the South Carolina, the faithful that were there, and Shane and everything. It was just. And at that point, you win those games back to back. You've got 8 W's on the year. You play the game. And look, bowl games are just so different now because it's not your team anymore.
Yeah.
Your Notre Dame was missing some guys too, don't get me wrong. But you walked out of that year going, man, some good momentum.
Well,
this is good.
I mean, they were a huge talk for the entire college football offseason because of those 2 wins. We talked about it going into last season, the anticipation like, hey, you won 7 games year number 1, 8 games year number 2. Why can't you win 9 games in year number 3?
That's human nature, right?
That is what led to the disappointment that 5-7 was. 5-7 is always going to be a disappointment anytime you miss a bowl game at a place like Carolina. But coming off the heels of what that last year was and what you did in those last couple games, massive, massive step back. But again, here we are, 2 years later, 8 wins already, a potential 9th on the docket this weekend if you can get it, and a potential 10th if you get there in a bowl game as well.
Sniffing around the college football playoff. And let's go, all right, now rewind. You had that momentum.
Yeah.
And then you gave it up. Now you got it again. What are you going to do with it this time? What did you learn from the last time? It felt like you had your momentum to spring forward as a program, and you fell back. What lessons can you learn from 2 years ago?
And I'm a big believer in the momentum. I almost kind of wonder if the schedules changed and you played Tennessee and Clemson ranked where they were in the middle of the season and still had those wins and still had, 5 more games after that, what would it have meant for those 5 games and how different could your record have looked? Because I think that is valuable, having those 2 wins, in the middle of the season as opposed to the end of the season. Because, again, you go into a month off, got guys transferring out. Again, it's a bowl game with a skeleton crew. It's not quite the same to be able to carry that momentum into a game like that as opposed to doing it early in the season, where now Carolina has beaten A&M. They beat Missouri these past couple weeks. You handled Vanderbilt pretty easily on the road against a pretty solid team there. So you're surging right now going into this game.
Yeah, and you look back at this run, now all of a sudden the whooping of Oklahoma in Norman looks even better after you saw what Oklahoma did to Alabama last Saturday.
Yep.
So, again, that momentum, no matter what happens these next 2 games, you've hit 8 wins.
Yes.
What do you do with this momentum moving forward? That's the interesting question. Hopefully, a lot of good stuff. Hopefully, this is the start of something. All right, halftime show, football, and more football, and some football we'll throw in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors, starting with Shane Beamer's Presser, which is next here on The Game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, Rivalry Week. We're going to hear from Shane Beamer here in just a couple of seconds. And his weekly presser. Getting you looking back a little bit on Wofford and then looking forward to Clemson this Saturday on the road. So we'll hear from Shane just in a couple of minutes. It is football, and more football in the 1 o'clock hour. Always sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. We got some interesting football stuff to get to in the NFL. We talked a little bit about the game last night, Monday Night Football. Also, Mac Brown getting fired at North Carolina. Jerry Jones says, guess what? Mike McCarthy could be back. Right now, let's get Shane Beamer, though, his weekly presser right here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia.
Time to get hyped.
Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm.
Sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
Now, let's hear from the coach. Shane Beamer's press conference, sponsored by Crescent Construction.
rankings come out, whatever it is, and people will be talking about it and things like that as well. So we addressed it maybe a few weeks ago. Just the thing that we needed to do is worry about what we can control, and that's winning football games. And this is no different. We don't talk about it. Not that that's the right thing. We talk about, again, none of it matters if you don't go out there and play well on Saturday. So we need to focus on playing well Saturday, and everything else takes care of itself.
I have one more question about the college football playoff. The new format this year, you've been part of it in the past as an assistant in things. What do you think about the idea between, I mean, the FCS deals with this all the time, teams that come in having played a game against teams that have an extra week off or something like that? Which do you think is preferable?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think it kind of goes back to when you're talking about an off week or open week during the season. Do you want, if you just won the game the week before, do you want to keep playing, or do you need that time to recover? So certainly I think everybody would prefer the week off, and then it leads right into a bowl game where you've got some time in December to really recover and self-scout, kind of focus on exams, all that stuff as well, and make it like a normal bowl experience. There's a lot of positives, but I also think there's a lot of positives. It's not like you're going to play in that if we were playing in Atlanta next week, it's not like we would play Clemson this week, then Atlanta next week, and then have to immediately play the following week. There's 2 weeks between the conference championship games. So to me, I kind of like obviously I'm not an idiot. You'd love to have a bye and not have to play, but I don't think it's a detriment if you don't get that bye. The thing that I don't like, Pete, is just I wish there was a way where, bowl games are awesome. And I want every college player to get the experience of a bowl game. So I don't like the fact that if you're playing in the first round of the playoff, that's awesome and a great accomplishment. But let's say you play on Saturday, the first round. You're going to leave on Friday, travel wherever you are. They play the game. If you lose, your season's over, and that's it. And you don't go to a bowl game. And then I wish there was a way to, not like a consolation prize. And I know if you lost in the first round of the playoff, nobody's going to want to get their team rallied back to go to the, whatever bowl. But, that's a part of it. But that's a good trade-off, too, that you get to go in the playoff. But you do lose the bowl experience for the 4 teams that lose in the first round. So my advice would be, if you get in, don't lose in the first round. Then you get to go to a bowl. So pretty simple. Control what you can control. Win.
You talked a little bit about Cade Klubnik earlier. Do you see any similarities between him and Lenoris, just in how they've progressed and what kind of players they are? And then also just on the injury front, Simon, Brown, Smith, any updates there?
Yeah, as far as Cade, I think, you see some similarities. Just the way that probably the biggest thing that jumps out, Alan, is their ability to get themselves out of trouble in the pocket. I mean, Lenoris, obviously, it's been well written and talked about, some of the sacks that he's gotten out of. You can say the same thing about Cade as well. I mean, there's a lot of plays where he's sacked and he comes out of there, and it's not just coming out of there, it's coming out of there and throwing a 50-yard touchdown pass. He had one against Virginia Tech where they had him on the ground. He comes out of it, throws a touchdown pass down Virginia Tech's right sideline. There's one against Virginia where he gets out of it, rolls out, and throws a deep ball down the left side to Virginia's sideline. There's one against Pitt where he gets out of there and runs for positive yardage. So his ability to get himself out of trouble is really, really impressive. And then I think just the way that he's grown as a passer as well. You see that development just like Lenoris, and think a lot of him. I got to know him in high school when I was coaching at Oklahoma, and Austin, Texas was my recruiting area. And so recruited him, and we had him up to a couple games in Norman from down there in Austin, and think a lot of him as a person, and enjoy, watching him play. As far as injuries, we'll see. Dabo said some of his guys are day-to-day, some of our guys are day-to-day. So I know he said one's hour to hour. We probably got one that's hour to hour too.
Speaking of Mayor. Speaking of Dabo, I think he said earlier today, he hears a lot about the Clemson-Carolina rivalry, especially if they lose and
Carolina-Clemson.
Carolina-Clemson.
All right, come on, Jack.
Thank you for correcting me on that.
Dabo said Clemson-Carolina.
Yeah, but anyway, paraphrasing, right? But he talks about it like, he'll go to a grocery store, and he doesn't hear much about, if you lose to Pitt or some random team or whatever. But when you lose to Carolina, it's a different story. As for you, whenever it's like Carolina-Clemson, how often do you hear about the rivalry, win or lose, in the days leading up to it?
I think you hear about it, year round. Just you're in, and that's what I told our players this morning, Jack. It's awesome being in this state because we don't have any of the, major pro sports. So it's other schools in the state, but it's primarily, one of two, Carolina or Clemson. And that's what I love. I love that aspect of it as well. So you can't help but hear about it because it is a small state, and they're right up the road, and you're surrounded by wherever you go, Tigers, Gamecocks, wherever. And I think that's great. And got a lot of respect for their fan base. I have close friends that are Clemson fans, and I have close friends that are, Gamecock fans. So you certainly hear about it. Whenever I go in the local, there's a CVS right near where I live, CVS Pharmacy, and whenever I pop into CVS Pharmacy, the awesome lady that works in there, Miss Kathy, she's a Clemson fan, and every time I go in there, I get the rundown for 10 straight minutes about Dabo and the Clemson Tigers. So we actually FaceTimed Dabo last Thanksgiving. I went in there on Thanksgiving Day, and we were going to get Miss Kathy on the phone, and he didn't answer, but I was going to let her, tell him. You tell me all about Clemson, tell Dabo also. But now you can't help but hear about it, just being in the state of South Carolina. But it's that's part of it, and it's what makes rivalries great and whatnot as well.
Shane, when you look at Antonio Williams, how much has he improved? And you look at him this year, the way they're using him, even as a passer.
Mm-hmm. He's improved a lot. I saw him throw a pass as well in a game earlier this year. They're using him in a lot of different ways. They're getting the ball to him, Rick, on jet sweeps. He's in the slot. He's outside as well. So he's really developed as a receiver. Knew the skill set, obviously, coming out of high school. That's why we recruited him like we did. Great skill set and ability in space to make people miss, and then a really dangerous punt returner as well. So he looks stronger and even more polished than what he was as a receiver, and certainly somebody that has our attention and we need to be very, very aware of.
Kyle was in here earlier, and he talked about how much he loves playing in away games, and then Lenoris basically revealed that he didn't grow up watching South Carolina Clemson, and Demetrius has talked about his leadership. You have a lot of vocal leaders on this team. I guess, what are some of the advantages of having kind of different perspectives? Lenoris is not going to go in and change his mood about this weekend, but Kyle might, Demetrius might. Kind of, what are the advantages of having so many different angles and kind of attacks to this game, which you said will be very emotional? Yeah,
I think it starts with the fact that so many of those guys, they're experienced, they're a very mature team, and they're not going to be in awe of anything. And Kyle was a part of Georgia Tech, and D Knight was at Georgia Tech for a minute, and he was a part of that rivalry with Georgia. And Rocket Sanders has been a part of, whether you say A&M is that rival game or Missouri at the end of the season, they've been a part of it. And Lenoris is a guy that not much rattles him as well. So I think it's just the maturity and the experience that those guys have, and continue to be who you are. And that's what we've talked about, Lulu, is don't change anything this week. Like, we're in this position because of who we are and what we've done throughout the season. So let's not all of a sudden get to Clemson week, because I think you got to be careful about making it, too big at times, and talking all week about how much you want it and how much you don't like Clemson, and Clemson talking about how much they don't like Carolina and all that as well. I think sometimes when you're doing that, that's taking you away from what's really important. So continue to be who we are, don't change, and the most important thing is, like I said, go play well on Saturday, and the team that does that is going to be the one that feels pretty good after the game.
In this new era of college football, you guys have 20-something new transfers, a bunch of freshmen, guys who weren't around the rivalry at all. Like, did they care about the rivalry, or is it just another game? And in some ways, like, would you like them to just think about it as another game, or do you want them to get up and, be emotional about it?
I think there's a fine line. I think they certainly care about the rivalry. I don't think you can be here long without hearing about Clemson. And that's what I think is cool about this rivalry is it's in all sports. I mean, y'all have heard me say it before, probably getting ready to play Clemson. At other places that I've been, they're only really worried about the football game each year and maybe basketball. But here it's like a real big deal when you play them in any sport. And so I don't think it takes long for any new arrival to get here and figure out, the Clemson game at the end of the season is really important to the fan base here at South Carolina and in this state as well. And even if you did just get here, Lenoris may not have grown up watching this game, but this is one that's always on Thanksgiving weekend that people are always, one of the rivalry games that people are always tuned into, in my opinion, as well. I want everybody to, play with emotion, play with an edge in any game. But, I think certainly rivalry games, you may not quite realize what it is, but once you get there and experience it and ride in on the bus and walk out there and get out there for pregame warmups, there's just a little bit of a different feel as well. So, but again, get back to just prepare yourself during the week to go play well on Saturday, and then once the game starts, a lot of that goes out the window, and it just gets down to playing football and who can play more winning football than the other team.
You alluded to the improvement of Clemson's offense from the beginning of the year back in that game against Georgia in August, and a lot of that has to do with the run game and Phil Maffa, and I think they almost run for like 200 yards a game. But what's going to be something that's going to be imperative for you guys to be able to slow it down and make sure they don't dictate kind of the terms and conditions of the game on the ground?
Yeah. You've got to be able to tackle well, which is easier said than done. You've got a big back in Maffa that can make you miss, but he can also run you over. So you've got to tackle well. You've got to be able to, when you get an opportunity, when we're in the backfield and we get around the quarterback, we got to be able to get him on the ground as well. And I think a huge thing for us will just be takeaways. Clemson's third in the nation in turnover margin right now, third. And I know last year, I've obviously followed them closely being in the state. They weren't very good last year. They turned the ball over way too many times last season, and Dabo has said that. They're not doing that this year. That's not a knock on wood. That's like a reverse knock wood. Like you want them to turn it over, right? So you don't want to. You want them to turn it over, but they're not. I mean, I think they've only turned the ball over something like 7 times the entire season, which is crazy. I mean, that's less than 1 a game. So for us, we've got to be able to create takeaways and knock the ball out, force interceptions, errant throws, whatever it might be, and then that gets them off schedule. But if you're not doing a good job tackling and you're not creating takeaways, it's going to be tough. And it's not just Moffitt, it's the receivers are loads and they're hard to bring down, and they're different skill sets. Whether they make you miss, outrun you, they can do it all.
With it being a holiday week, what do the next couple of days look like, specifically Thursday around here?
Yeah, so regular week for us, we've tried to just keep routine. I'm a routine guy. It drives my wife crazy that I just try and always keep the game schedule, and I'm a routine person and don't like change. So it'll be the same schedule for us as far as football goes today. And then tomorrow we'll keep our normal routine. There's a big game Saturday, but there's a really big game tomorrow night here. That's our annual manager versus trainer football game. The Turkey Bowl, that's tomorrow night at 6:30. The training staff won a huge battle last year, so they've had the bragging rights / trophy now for a year, so it's up to the equipment staff to try and bring it back. So that'll be tomorrow night at 6:30 in the indoor facility, and that's always fun and spirited. So that'll be different. And then Thursday morning, we'll keep our same schedule. On Thursday, we practice in the mornings, as you guys know anyway. So we'll start out Thanksgiving morning at 8 a.m. with a special teams meeting, and we'll finish up practice around 11:30 on Thursday morning. And then just like a regular in-season week, they're free after that until Friday. And obviously during the season, they go to class but they're free, and it'll be the same thing. So they live close by and they want to get home with their families and go spend Thanksgiving. They can. A lot of guys obviously are staying here and either going to a teammate's house that maybe lives close, or they're going to their position coach's house, which I know a lot of our guys are doing. And that'll be the rest of the day, Thursday and Thursday night. And then we're back in here Friday morning and start our normal Friday away game routine.
Without giving away too much of your offensive game plan, when like the Citadel rushes for 288 yards using the option game, is that something that you think, hey, I might throw in a couple of these plays just because of what their success they had for them last week?
Yeah, when you look at the stat sheet and you see Citadel went for that, certainly, it opens your eyes as well, and they did a nice job as well. And, parts of our offense, you guys have watched us all season. We may not be under center and look like the old wishbone, but we're doing a lot of triple option elements in our offense where here comes a receiver around and then Lenoris can either hand it to Rocket or pull it. And then if he pulls it, he can pitch it to a receiver. I mean, that's triple option, and that's what, we've been doing. So that's our offense to begin with. But, certainly you look at every game they've played this season in all three phases and break it down and find things that fit you. There's no question about it. But the Citadel came in and did a good job and running the ball. And there's elements of that we'll certainly look at. But we'll also look at elements of what, Pitt did and Virginia did and Georgia did and App State and everyone else, Wake and on and on and on that they've played this season. I don't know. We've never really discussed that. I'm sure they would love the crowd, I'm sure. So I don't know. We'll have to make that announcement on social media without a doubt. So thank you, guys. Happy Thanksgiving.
All right, there's Shane Beamer doing his Tuesday presser, talking a ton about the Clemson game and the rivalry. It is rivalry week here on the game, sponsored by our buds at Columbia Craft in the Vista. We'll come back, discuss what Shane just talked about for a half hour on the halftime show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head on the game. Rivalry week here on the game. Should be fun Saturday. Upstate, South Carolina, Clemson. Obviously, we'll talk about it a little bit as the week goes on. Kind of, sort of.
Just a little.
Just a little bit.
We got to take a one-day break on Thursday, but other than that, it's full steam ahead
we will.
On the hate.
How dare you take a day off of the hate to eat Thanksgiving dinner? So we will be...
hate can make you hungry.
Absolutely. So we'll be here, obviously, today, tomorrow, and Friday for Rivalry Week. We're all going to take a break on Thursday to eat a lot of, desserts. I mean, turkey and stuff.
You and I had this conversation earlier. I mean, and listening to Bill and Preston in the mornings, they got me really hungry today. It's really about the sides. I love turkey, but I can get turkey, 365 days a year.
Pop down the deli.
A lot of things that are going to be on the Thanksgiving table, I can't get 365 days a year.
You know what's weird is I like turkey. I do. But I'm a big ham guy. I love ham.
Solid choice as well.
I mean, I do. I love ham.
You missed the turkey and ham at the press box on Saturday.
I know. Jeez. Bummed. So, Christmas, we always have ham.
Sure.
Now at Thanksgiving, I want ham. No offense, I don't eat ham that much during the year. You can go to the deli and get ham, right?
Yeah,
sure. But it's different than making a ham in the oven.
Yeah, there's difference between sliced and what you put on a sandwich and what you actually bake in the oven, maple glaze, whatever, honey glazed.
My dad would start making it 3 days before Thanksgiving, and he put it on. I put the oven on 125. We're gonna cook it for 3 days, boy. And
first you had to go out back and kill the pig first.
Absolutely, got to chase that down. Let's go. Come on, boy. We got to go hunt down Thanksgiving dinner. So, I like ham, but I'm to the point now where it's like if it's turkey, it's fine. I like turkey, but I'm there now for, like you said, the mashed potatoes and the gravy, the stuffing. I like the sweet potatoes, yams, whatever you want to call them, depending on what you do and what you make. I like both. I'm not a hater.
Yeah.
Love the biscuits, the rolls, love bread. But you know what else? I get to that. Here's the problem. Now I've got to go take a nap so I can eat 17 desserts.
Well, of course. You gotta make room. And
yes.
Because napping burns calories. It's a workout, essentially. So you got to make room for the dessert later. Do you think, as a head football coach or any football coach in general, can you focus on Thanksgiving? And Beamer said, hey, we're going to practice in the morning like normal, then everybody has the rest of the day off, and we'll see them on Friday. If you're Beamer sitting at Thanksgiving dinner 2 days away from playing your in-state rival in what we expect is a top 15 matchup with implications of the college football playoff on both sides, can you think you can focus on or do you, if you ask Coach Beamer on Friday to name what was on his Thanksgiving plate, would he be able to tell you that?
No.
Or is he so locked in?
Yeah, I mean, you ever had something hovering over you that's big?
Yeah.
And you're trying to do life while this thing, whatever it is hovering
you're just on
over
autopilot.
You. Yeah, you're kind of you're trying to say, look, man, I want to just chill and want to just do life and hang out with my family, my friends, my girl, my guy, whatever. But it's still sitting there hovering, and sometimes they're in the middle of talking to you. And you zone to that big thing.
You're gone.
And it is. It's like the teacher from Peanuts. They're talking, wah, 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 wah. You have no idea what they're saying. And now you come back and you're like, oh, my God.
You panic because you're like, I don't know what they've been talking about for the last 5 minutes.
What the hell have they been saying? So you hope they give you some key words to get you back in because you've totally zoned. I can see him doing that at Thanksgiving because he loves his family. We know that.
Sure.
But you can see him with the family. They're all talking. All of a sudden, he's zoning into some film that he watched on Clemson's defense or whatever. And then he comes back a couple minutes later and has no idea what's going on.
Yeah, I can see that.
I can see it too.
Yeah.
It's just human nature. It's got to be tough this time of year, especially with so much that is on the line here.
Really?
There's no doubt.
Because, obviously Clemson had plenty of implications of the playoffs coming in, but this is the first time Carolina's ever come into this game with playoff implications or anything relating to national championship implications, at least in my lifetime. I guess you can go back to 84 when they lost that game to Navy. So I don't know what exactly the stakes would have been going into the Clemson game that year, but we've never gone into this game with both teams still having a realistic shot to enter whatever format of a postseason we have to determine the national champion.
Right, and this is great, though, for South Carolina. Now you get a taste. No matter how big the taste is, you're getting a taste. You're going into a game that you have to win. if you want any shot of being part of the college football playoff. You're getting a little bit of a something from this new world order.
Yeah.
And this is cool. This is what's so cool about this expanded playoff. If you got a 14 playoff, we're not having this conversation.
No.
No, we're not.
I mean, it'd pretty much be Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, and then I guess the debate would be Penn State and Notre Dame. And then everybody else just kind of maybe Miami in there, but no, that's pretty much it. So
I mean,
we've expanded the conversation.
This is so much fun because now, and I'm just looking at this BCS top 25 through the computer. Tonight we'll get the college football playoff ranking. But if you're looking at this in just a 14 field, you said Oregon, Ohio State, play for the Big Ten championship. That might be in a Final Four and elimination game, right?
Yeah, and you know what? If Ohio State wins, they split. They both get in.
Yep, that's a possibility. Texas, again, they would have to keep winning, which means they'll say they play Georgia in the SEC championship game. Texas can't lose.
No.
Penn State, it's kind of interesting. Almost they're in a nice little spot because they're not going to play for the Big Ten championship. If they go through with only one loss,
right,
they can sit back with their feet up. And then you have Notre Dame with one loss. So you would have some fun conversations here.
You would.
But nothing like this. Because of the college football playoff expanding. Now, Georgia can talk. Miami, SMU, Indiana, Tennessee, Boise State, for the love of God, Clemson, Bama, Arizona State, South Carolina, Ole Miss, even like Iowa State, who's now a dark horse to get into the Big 12 championship game. I just named you 17 teams that stuff matters right now when we'll be like this typically. Well, can't win the conference championship. What bowl game you think they're going to go to?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a secondary conversation right now here because, yes, the percentage isn't high, but in the words of the great Lloyd Christmas.
Tell me there's a chance. Till it's absolute zero, you don't give up hope. And look, the playoff has lessen the importance of being perfect or close to perfect. Because, again, if you want to make the 14 playoff for the BCS National Championship game outside of LSU in 07, you had to be undefeated or have just one loss, and that loss better be a quality loss or you're not getting in either. So we've expanded that out to where now you can't have some mulligans. But, again, I'm looking at this saying, okay, well, Georgia's a team that might be good enough to win the national championship. If Tennessee can play up to their potential, they might have a shot at it. We thought Ole Miss was in good position to make a run for the national championship. Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Notre Dame, Miami obviously has an electric offense. So we'll see what happens if an Arizona State gets into it or whoever's coming out of the Big 12. Like, so many stories, right? So many things to follow and keep up with that's what makes this exciting. Yeah, again, the regular season it doesn't diminish in quality because it expands to more games being important, but the quest for perfection is not what it once was. But again, it's kind of a trade-off.
I mean, my thing has always been, to me, the college football regular season is the best regular season in sports. Don't cheapen it.
Yeah.
This hasn't cheapened it. It's done the opposite. This thing is so wide open now to where you have, like I said, we just talked about 17 teams. 17 spots in this country are invested this Saturday, because no matter what percentage it is, their team has a shot to get in the college football playoff. I mean, we talk about South Carolina beating Clemson. In the upstate, they're saying, well, if Clemson can beat South Carolina and then Miami loses, guess what?
You're in the ACC championship
game. And if you can beat SMU, guess what?
You're in.
Clemson they got to handle their business. Then they got to hope Miami gets dumped, which is that can happen with the Hurricane D. Then all of a sudden, you're playing for a shot at the college football playoff.
Yep.
And we're just talking about top of the hour, that Clemson isn't what Clemson used to be, and this and that and the other and whatever. And like my buddy would say, and who struck John? I never knew what that meant, but he always said it. Who struck John? I don't know. But Clemson, if they get a little bit of help and handle their business, all of a sudden, guess who's playing for a shot back in the college football playoff?
That's right.
That's matters. What this is, man. This is what's cool about all this. All this stuff. Boise State actually is playing games that matter where they could be in a college football playoff with a bye, for the love of God.
Yep.
That's what makes this so cool. And circling back with Shane eating Thanksgiving dinner, you think that's going through his mind?
Probably a little bit.
A little bit.
Last year was just winning the game to get to a bowl.
Yeah.
Now there's a lot more on the line. You've already clinched the bowl.
Think about the difference of and you brought this up before. Think about the difference of last year to this year.
Yeah, he referenced it a little bit earlier. Hey, we were 5-6, knowing if we lost, our season was over.
Now you're playing for multiple things, which is massively cool. All right, Firehouse Up, text the hour, 803-404-6100. We'll get to that next. It is the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, appreciate you hanging. Post-game show at Cato's. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. It's Rivalry Week, sponsored by our buddies at Columbia Craft right here on the game. Oh, time for our Firehouse Subtext the hour. 803-404-6100. Don't forget, 3 to 6 today, post-game show live at Cato's Power Equipment Beltline in Columbia. Pop out, see all the cool stuff going on at Cato's. And also register to win tickets, not only for South Carolina and Clemson this Saturday, but South Carolina-Clemson men's basketball coming up, and also South Carolina-Clemson baseball during next year's baseball season. So you can go to all three for nothing. But you got to go register today at Cato's, 3 to 6, Beltline in Columbia. Tomorrow, noon to 3 at the Nest in the Vista. And Nest's got a lot of cool stuff going on there, too.
Well, see, you've been telling me about all this stuff at the Nest. I'm intrigued because you've gotten to go out there by yourself most of the
Place
time.
is fun, man. I mean, if you're into doing all that stuff for your home, like the appliances and the fixtures and the lighting, and they got tubs they can put in. The place is just, I mean, the way they've got it set up for the appliances, it's like a big gigantic kitchen.
Yeah,
it's really cool. I mean, like I say, I could live in the Nest. Just set me up some bed somewhere. I would do the show every day from there. I'd be good. Place is cool.
Don't think the owners would appreciate that.
Probably not. Probably would frown upon that. All right, what do you got there, old Firehouse Subtext the hour?
Nameless Texter asked, what good bowl games are available that are not a part of the playoffs? Again, South Carolina's chance to make the playoffs aren't the highest, so if they weren't able to get in, what bowl game options are out there? I actually looked at this yesterday because with what we assume would be Alabama and Ole Miss falling out of the playoff, that means South Carolina's bowl projections changed quite a bit. So I've got one projection for the Music City Bowl, one for the Citrus Bowl, one for the Vegas Bowl, and one for the LiveQuest Bowl. So at this point in time, anything can happen, I guess.
So you got 2 Floridas, a Nashville, and a Vegas.
Yes.
Now, again, for the selfish purposes of us, because at the end of the day, it's all about us.
Totally.
Vegas would be awesome.
Vegas would be very cool.
Again.
Don't know if they're going to foot the bill for that
Ready?
one.
Gamecocks Game Day live from the Bellagio with Terry Ford and Tyler Head. And they're bail bondsmen. And then Nashville. I've never been to Nashville. Always want to go to Nashville. So Nashville will be fun. Been to Orlando, been to Tampa. But still would not turn down a trip to Florida.
Hey, Florida in December? Sign me up.
Don't want to be at the Motor City Bowl.
And or January?
Yep. I can do that. I can do that. There are a lot more, like no offense, don't want to go up north for a bowl game.
Looking at the projections, though, so the Music City had them facing Minnesota, Citrus would be Illinois, Vegas would be Wazoo, and then LiveQuest would be Iowa. Wazoo is the most intriguing matchup out of that. That could be kind of fun. Minnesota, Illinois, Iowa don't move the needle for me a whole lot.
Out of the 3, it's weird to say this. I'd rather play Illinois because they've actually thrown the forward pass more this year.
Hey, they're our top 25 team.
Iowa,
crazy win against Rutgers the other day.
No, just not Iowa.
Yeah.
It's like having your eye socket slowly melted for 3.5 hours. It's just...
Hey, compared to where they were last year, they've got an explosive offense.
They've run the ball this year. They
realized that the scoreboard at Kinnick Stadium can go past like 12.
And this year they're not screaming, we love punts. But you know what's ironic? Their offense is better this year and their record's worse.
I know. It's wild.
It's just bizarre. Maybe because the defense and the special teams, they carried them on their shoulders for so long, they've broken down.
I've said for a long time that if Kurt Ferentz actually cared about offense, they could have been a powerhouse team for the past 10 years with how good they are on defense and special teams.
What they've done, what Kurt Ferentz did, especially when he brought his kid in to be the offensive coordinator, that was almost a college football coaching felony.
Yeah.
If he would have went out and got a real offensive coordinator,
like there's nepotism, then there's extreme nepotism.
Yeah, and then there's just what he did was. It was almost like breaking a coaching commandment, right? To where you're banned from the College Football Hall of Fame forever, even though you've been a long-time successful coach, because you basically ruined a national championship contender because of your kid.
Pretty much.
That's what you did. Don't want to play them. Oh, gosh. Rowing the boat's boring, too. Minnesota has become this... They're a slog. I mean, they're
an okay Big Ten team.
They're okay. They'll win 6, win 7. Every couple years, old PJ falls into a 9-win year. But usually they're about 6, 7-win team. They go to a bowl game and they'll have an upset through the year where everybody goes, woohoo!
PJ Fleck will look like he's in a barbershop quartet.
Yeah, he kind of does, doesn't he? Think he irons his underwear?
I don't want to know.
He has that look of a guy that irons his underwear. I knew a dude that used to do that. It's weird. It's weird. So.
There's no transition from that.
No, there's not. There's just not.
Hey, how about we check in with Elijah coming up next?
He's coming up. We're going to talk to Elijah. Elijah Campbell covering the presser for us on the way next hour as we hit what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. It's rivalry week. It's getting hot already. Some guy named Ian now hates me. I suck, and he ran away on the chat because he's a Clemson fan, and I was disparaging Clemson so awful.
How dare you?
I know. I didn't even say that. I really didn't. I'm like the most objective guy on the radio station about it. I'm not even like, I didn't even go to Carolina or anything. He got mad at me. So, all right, we've already riled up one guy.
My boy Ian and I have a bet. This is dating back in the summer. And I said, if Clemson is able to get out of the ACC by 2028, I will wear a Tiger suit for an entire show because I'm that positive that is not happening.
Well, Tyler said that
he remembered it.
He's usually a very calm, good guy, gets on the chat, has fun. The last 2 days, he's going off the chain.
Yeah, he's been a little all over the place. You know, this rivalry gets to everybody. By the way, I'm remembering that if they do get out.
Oh yeah, he remembered it. No, he's got the text screenshotted because I did it on the text line because I feel that comfortable about it.
Well, be honest, I'm not going to go as far to make that kind of bet too. But again, you're a guy that you don't
have a good reputation with these bets lately.
You're the guy that ate Rocky Mountain oysters, so you don't bet on anything.
I put my money where my mouth is, right?
So to speak.
Yes.
Anyway, so yeah, you're another level. I wouldn't make those kind of bets, but I don't think Clemson's getting out of the ACC anytime soon.
Nope. It would not behoove them.
All right, so today, Shane, presser, rivalry week. Shane was very respectful, very above everything, complimenting everything and everyone. Nothing to leave for bulletin board material for anybody. Shane,
he knows better.
He checked all the boxes today, right?
He did. He knows better. And thankfully, it's easier for him because I do genuinely believe him and Dabo have like a good working relationship. I think there's a lot of mutual respect there between one another, especially after what happened in 2022. One way to gain the respect of the head coach of your rival school is to beat them in their home stadium and knock them out of a playoff. I think that sounds some alarms, and I think that's what made Clemson's win for them here last year that much more memorable, even if Carolina was 5-6 going into that game and playing basically just for an extension of their season. That's really what was all on the line in that game, but you still saw Clemson soaking in every bit. I mean, Mike Yuva posted the video on Twitter where he was doing a stand-up on the field after the game, and a few Clemson players were taking pictures in front of the cockpit that was empty. They stayed on the field a while after that game. They soaked it in, as you should. That's what this should be, right? That's what rivalries are all about. So, they remembered that in 22, reciprocated it in 23 by making sure you didn't get to play in a bowl game. But I think that is where Carolina is with them, is that they remember that and they've earned the respect of that program because of it.
Well, 2 years ago, you knocked them out of the college football playoff.
Yeah.
And then
they can do the same thing this week.
And then last year they got you and kept you out of a bowl game. So yeah, you got something going. In last year's game, look, we were all there in the press box watching last year's game. Wasn't the most exciting 3.5 hours of anybody's life.
It turned into a snoozer.
And it was obvious that South Carolina could not move the ball. Clemson's defense was that good, and South Carolina's offensive line struggled that bad that you just could not sustain any kind of drive. All you were hoping for were you hit an explosive or two down the field. Hit Leggett on a crosser and he'd go 70 yards, right?
Yeah, you're banking
that was
on
last year. This year it's different. The Clemson defense, and this is, not me hating. You look at all the numbers and the metrics, they're not as good as they were in the last couple of years. Now, their offense is better than it's been in the last couple of years.
They run for almost 200 a game.
And, Klubnik has gotten much better than he has been his best year easily as a starter. But their defense, it's fallen down some pegs. If you look at stats, numbers, eye test, whatever.
Yeah.
So what makes this game interesting is South Carolina's defense. Remember, that's when it started cooking last year. Clemson didn't score an offensive touchdown in this game last year. The defense is even better than it was at the end of last year, South Carolina. The offensive line is better than it was last year. We're still not, nominating more awards here, but it's better, right?
Yes.
And, your running game's better.
Significantly.
And now your quarterback the last few weeks is starting to make everybody go, wow.
Got back-to-back 300-yarders.
Yeah, and so this game, I think it'll be close. I don't think there's, I don't think there's going to be a blowout here. I think it's going to be a good game. But all of a sudden, you got quite an interesting contest here where I think we're going to have more fireworks than we had last year, if that makes any sense.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Like there is more of I'm trying to think of a good way to put this. I think the conditions are more ripe for a classic rivalry game because what you just have going on, right? I think there's a really good chance that when the college football playoff rankings drop later tonight, that South Carolina and Clemson are both two of the first 4 teams out of the playoff picture, right? So what you're really playing for is an elimination game for a puncher's chance to hear your name be called on the selection show in a few weeks. I think that's one thing that's on the line here, right? Because both teams have earned that opportunity. But now you see a South Carolina offense with the firepower to be able to score a lot of points against really good defenses. And this is a Clemson offense that has gotten significantly better since that first week against Georgia. And I hate using, a game in August as a data point or a talking point now that we're here in the last week of November as to what a team's going to do. But if you look at the defenses Clemson's played this year, the most comparable is Georgia's. But I don't think South Carolina holds them to 3. I could be wrong. Something like that could definitely happen. I just think that is a very slim chance. But I think both teams will get theirs. Both teams will find ways to try to control the ball, control the clock, be able to move up and down the field well enough to get themselves in scoring range. Special teams is going to be massive in this game because I do believe the margins are just going to be that thin.
Elijah Cale hanging out with us, covering Shane Beamer's presser at 1 o'clock here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia. Now we've joined back to the network. All right, always ask you, first thought you take away from the press conference, or what was running through your head hearing Shane go back and forth with the media?
I thought it was pretty funny that he was mildly disappointed in hearing Lenoris's answer about not watching this rivalry game a ton growing up, considering he's from Florence and went to high school at South Florence. But I thought that was mildly funny. But it's a lot of the talk about the rivalry. I thought he made a really good point when asked about how Lenoris would handle this environment compared to other environments he's played in. And you go back and look at some of the road games. You look at Kentucky and Oklahoma. They took the crowd out of it. And Oklahoma did it within the first 5 minutes because you were up 21-0 and you only had to engineer one scoring drive in which you started the ball deep into Oklahoma territory. So the crowd was a non-factor in that game. Kentucky isn't necessarily known for having the most raucous environment in college football. I mean, this isn't hoop. You're not playing at Rupp.
No,
Kroger's a little different than Rupp, but you took them out of the game because of how much you dominated their offense pretty early on. And then in the Alabama game, you're more than 3 touchdown underdogs at an 11 a.m. local kick, which alone might take a normal college football crowd, maybe not out of the game, because they were not out of it. It was still a raucous environment, but it wasn't Max Bryant-Denny because of the opponent and what people thought of South Carolina at the time. Again, reminding everybody that was a South Carolina team fresh off a 27-3 loss to Ole Miss. And again, you're 23.5-point underdogs or whatever it was by the time of the kick. So really the idea of threat didn't kick into that Alabama fan base until the second half. And even then it was more angst at their team as opposed to hostility towards South Carolina. So this is going to be the harshest environment they've played in all season long. This will be the harshest environment Lenoris Sellers has been a starting quarterback in all season long. This will be the first, or maybe the most, that an opposing crowd will have an impact on the game for this entire season, despite playing in some really tough environments.
Elijah Cable hanging out with us, talking about Shane Beamer's 1 o'clock presser that Elijah covered here for us here on 107.5 The Game here in Columbia. All right, so we look at the road for South Carolina this year. Like you said, went to Kentucky, got up on the Wildcats early, blew it open in the second quarter, early third quarter.
Smacked them up.
And rolled off to an easy win. Then you went on the road to Tuscaloosa, got down 14-0, came back, took the lead, really should have found a way to win that game late. But you, like you said, 75,000-point underdog in Alabama, and you almost beat the Tide. Really should have beat the Tide at the end.
The energy is more angsty for Alabama than hostile.
Absolutely. You go to Norman, punch them in the lower extremities, and all that game was over.
Within the first 5 minutes.
Within the first 5 minutes. You go to Vandy, and you control them, and you score first again, and you grab that game as well.
And you had about a 50% contingency there to cheer you on, as opposed to Vanderbilt. That's a generous estimation.
In your road wins, you've gotten on them early. And what crowd there is in whatever shape or form you took them out. So probably a good formula maybe get that first score against Clemson. Get yourself going early, take that crowd down a peg or two or a notch, and sort of like the formula of the other wins. How good has this team been on the road this year, dude?
Phenomenal. And that's the importance of having a great defense and having two edge rushers that you have to account for if you're an opposing offense. Think about it. Your defense being this good is what got you a 21-0 lead. And there's nothing that will deflate the energy of a crowd like Tom Brady AFC Championship style deflation when you go into a place and you have a strip sack for a touchdown interception that is returned into the opponent's territory and a pick six. Like, that's the type of stuff that takes crowds out of the game. And I think that's why Shane also, when I asked him about Clemson's running game, because I feel like Clemson's roadmap, I think, will just to be maintaining possession and wearing down South Carolina's defense enough to be able to, and doing that by running the ball, by using up a lot of clock, wearing down Carolina's defense to where in the fourth quarter, maybe they can move the ball adequately enough to get the final score if needed, because I think everybody that's listening believes this will be at least a one possession game for almost the entirety of it. It has that feel to it. That's going to be a really important thing. But when talking about that and addressing how they're going to have to stop Clemson's ground game, he mentioned a few times you got to force turnovers. The team that's top 3 in the country in turnover rate, turning the ball over less than once a game. You got to be able to force turnovers, and in turn that will take the crowd out of the game, because what did it do against Kentucky? You forced turnovers, took the crowd out of the game. They realized that offense wasn't going anywhere with the football. Same thing against Vanderbilt too. And what little crowd domination they might have had in that game in terms of sheer numbers wasn't as juiced, because I think everybody in that stadium knew about a quarter and a half in, Vanderbilt wasn't going to be moving that ball up and down the field. So if you're able to establish that early and force a turnover to create an easy score for your offense, I don't think you're going to be able to take this Clemson crowd completely out of the game because of the nature of this rivalry, but you're going to be able to make this a whole lot more manageable for your young quarterback.
Yeah, and the Vanderbilt game, the big play was the Kennard strip sack, which turned the momentum, because Sellers had fumbled.
Yep, and they got it back.
They
went out there and got it right back, and the energy for Vanderbilt in that place completely shifted.
And again, against a team that didn't turn the ball over in Vanderbilt. Clemson, Klubnik's only thrown 4 picks all year. Clemson's not a team that hands you the rock.
Talk about the growth from that kid too. I mean, he's tough. Cade Klubnik's tough, and it's one of those that he's got a lot of the raw talent, the raw tools. But now he's finally starting to put it together in terms of taking care of the ball. Clemson last year lost the Florida State game because of turnovers. And that would have completely changed how we even looked at that team the rest of the season if they don't lose that game to Florida State in September. But they lost that because of some ball security issues, some turnovers at really inopportune times. And Klubnik, to his credit this year, has avoided a lot of those back-breaking turnovers, especially ever since they played Georgia in the opening Saturday of the season. He's a completely different quarterback, and he's really turned into quite the manager of a football game. I hate using game manager because it's almost used as a quarterback slur in a way. It's some negative connotation, which it shouldn't be.
No, it isn't. But if that's the first thing, it's like saying, that Elijah, you want to meet my friend Elijah? Oh, yeah, maybe your friend will go out with him. Tell me about Elijah. Great personality.
He's very polite.
Yeah, holds a door. He can cook.
Yes, ma'ams, and no. Yes, ma'ams, no, ma'ams. Yes, sirs, no, sirs.
That's what game manager has become. Yeah. You're the nice personality guy.
They don't mention how handsome you are. They say nice personality.
Exactly. All right, my man, you and Jay, post-game show from Cato's Power Equipment.
That's
today
right.
From 3 to 6.
Getting ready to head over there.
All right, my friend. Appreciate you like always. Good job. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. What's trending at 2? Sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. We'll continue that right here on The Game. Halftime show with Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Rivalry Week sponsored by Columbia Craft. We appreciate those folks there at Green Street in the Vista for sponsoring our week of South Carolina Clemson.
Week of hatred.
Nice. And you smell it, feel it in the air.
Yeah.
It's here. It's different.
Saying it all morning. They wear orange. That's enough for me. I despise orange. Friends don't let friends wear orange.
Well, yeah. Absolutely.
Simple as that. I don't need anything else with this rivalry besides that. There's plenty of other things, plenty of juice behind it, but orange is enough for me.
I like the fact you're fired up the way you are.
Yeah.
I like it.
I hate all orange teams. Clemson, Auburn, Tennessee, Texas, Florida. Simple.
I like it.
Yeah.
Denver Broncos.
Yeah, it's a little different when you get the NFL. I'm indifferent.
Not the same. It's fun just to say that because of Jay.
Yeah.
Kind of entertaining.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll flip back to football since it is rivalry week, but let's take a minute as we see what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Last night, Xavier, South Carolina, Fort Myers. Gamecocks is a little weird, started off down 7-0, then went on a huge run. Part of that huge run, Colin Murray Boyles, the first 19 that South Carolina scored, Colin Murray Boyles had 10 of them. Jamari Thomas had 6 of them. And that was pretty much it for Colin Murray Boyles. Only scored 3 points the rest of the game, got in foul trouble. That really obviously hurt South Carolina. Your best offensive player spends most of his game in foul trouble. Thomas only scored 5 the rest of the way after that. Look, halftime, you're up 34-29, Tyler. And then you come out, give up 46 in the second half, only score 32 yourself, and you end up taking a loss to an undefeated Xavier squad. It just not good. It was the second half was an issue, and you end up losing that basketball game where you're like, we were where we wanted to be at halftime. What happened? And that's kind of the way that felt almost. And, Lamont Paris, here's what Lamont had to say about the whole situation. Let's start with talking about the foul trouble issue, cut 3.
I like the lineup that we had early in the game when we started playing, and we were attacking, we were drawing fouls, we were playing how we need to play. And then the foul trouble got us, and we just were, aside from it affecting your rhythm, we also just it affected what we had out there and what we were able to do during that stretch. And so, but we did enough to still maintain a lead going in. We missed 4 layups in the first half. Yeah, 4 layups.
First 2 trips.
These are layups,
yeah.
And so, you like to see what a club like that how they respond if you can get those 8 points, minimize a couple of these second chance points that they have, and maybe you go up 10-12 going into halftime with a team that just got into the top 25, has an expectation, right? Probably looked and saw all these guys lost to North Florida, and but it wasn't meant to be that way because we didn't take advantage of a couple really good opportunities early in the game.
Yeah, you missed the layups. Some missed layups in the first half. You could have had a few extra points, but one of the other things that really hurt South Carolina, especially in the second half, was the offensive glass. Just got beat up. Too many second chance opportunities for Xavier. And here is Lamont Paris talking about those issues versus the Musketeers.
Yeah, a couple times we got punked, to be quite honest. I think a couple times we just got punked. It's one guy standing there and another guy standing there, and it may not be either guy's advantage. Sometimes it might be your advantage. You're in front, typically, and just didn't make it happen. We got physically manhandled on at least 2 of them that I know. But my guess is that there were probably a couple more than that. And they're physical and play a physical brand of basketball, but just didn't do it. We just didn't play we didn't play well enough overall. They looked excited. We would have been excited had we won. They should be excited. We played hard. We competed hard. We have a good team. We have to really figure out what our identity is and continue to play to those things. But when we needed, we pulled out some really good shots when we needed to, some good shot opportunities, and so we did some good things.
The one thing about and look, it's early. It's 6 games into this thing. Long way to go. But one of the things you are seeing, look, rebounding, sometimes a team's just more physical than you, and that's just life. But also rebounding is effort and grit and want to. It just is.
Right.
And, to stop, look, sometimes the ball shoots off the rim in weird, funny ways, and teams get offensive rebounds. But a lot of times, if you're just boxing out, you prevent these things. And like Lamont said about standing around, you can't stand around. You got to get a body on somebody and keep them off the offensive glass.
The effort of this team's been questioned a lot so far this season. That was the issue in game number 1 against North Florida. It just didn't seem like they were pushing as much as they needed to, and obviously ended up losing that game. And look, you went on the road and you faced a very good Indiana team. There's no shame in losing that. I just think the talent on their team was just better than South Carolina's. But I think people looked at this matchup with Xavier like, okay, Carolina has a chance here. But yeah, especially in that second half, it just looked like the effort was not there. And again, they're dominating off the glass. Xavier shot almost 55% from the field in the second half compared to South Carolina's 38. And then you deal with a lot of the game of having 2 of your better players, and Nick Pringle and Kyle Murray Boyles, in some form of foul trouble before Murray Boyles ends up, fouling out there. And that's kind of a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, the other part of this basketball team is you're watching not having Talon Cooper.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing. The offense, a lack of consistency with the offense. And Cooper was your pass-first point guard. He was a quarterback of the offense, and you're missing that right now. And can Jamar Thomas become more of a, quarterback as a point guard? We'll see. He was kind of a combo type guard before he came to South Carolina. Talon Cooper was all about running the offense. Pass first. If I have open opportunities, I'll take them in the context of the offense, but I'm looking to get everybody involved, have everybody eat. So, again, that's something that's, at the end of the day, you got to figure out a way to run this offense. Obviously, your best offensive player is Colin Murray Boyles. You got to keep him out of foul trouble.
Right.
He's got to learn how to defend without fouling, rebounding without fouling. And you got to figure out the backcourt. And also Nick Pringle. Pringle has, he's got to get himself up to speed with his basketball team as well, whether it's scoring, rebounding, defending. There's just a lack of consistency throughout everything right now. And it's got to get there. I'll try to get to a cut from Lamont before 3 about Cam Scott. We'll get to that as well. Cam Scott kind of hasn't really found his footing yet. He's a freshman. It's early on. It's only 6 games in. But that's another thing. If you can get Cam Scott to give you something off the bench, that would be quite helpful as well. So, again, they're 3-3, and Lamont. This team is different, obviously, than last year's, Tyler. It just is. And some of the pieces in the portal haven't meshed together as well as last year's pieces out of the portal, but there's still plenty of time to get this figured out.
Yeah, and look, you're playing a lot tougher of a non-conference schedule this year compared to what you were last year, so you're getting tested very early here, and it's obviously something that you hope you learn from and can make you better when SEC play rolls around here in about a month.
Oh, it's what is today, the 26th of November, which is...
It's the greatest day in the history of the world.
Next on the Halftime Show, Rivalry Week. Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on the game. Time to check the greatest day in the history of the world, which is November 26th. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head on the game. Remember, post-game show today from Cato's Power Equipment, Beltline in Columbia. Go out, see all the cool things going on at Cato's. Jump on a riding mower with Jay.
Sure.
Why not?
You sit in his lap, or how's this work?
Yeah, I think that'd be fine.
Sure. Jay, who gets so uncomfortable so easily, would love to have a random person sitting in his lap on a lawnmower, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Go see Jay. He'll take you for a ride on one of the cool riding mowers. You can sit in his lap. He'll let you steer. And then you can apply. Then you can, put your name in for tickets for South Carolina Clemson football this Saturday. Also, South Carolina Clemson men's basketball, South Carolina Clemson baseball. You could win all 3 sets of tickets, but you got to go today out to Cato's and register. And tomorrow with us at the Nest, noon to 3 in the Vista.
Disclaimer, you don't have to ride a lawnmower with Jay Phillips to win the tickets. Just saying.
I know, but
don't get in legal trouble.
Did you see how uncomfortable he would be?
Oh, I know Jay. When we talk about uncomfortable situations, you can see his skin crawl.
I know.
I can't imagine a random listener showing up like, hey, Jay, let's go ride this lawnmower together. I think he would die. I think he would actually die.
I believe he might go into some type of coma.
He'd sweat a lot first and then go into a coma.
So that's 3 to 6 post-game show today from Cato's Power Equipment Beltline in Columbia. All right, greatest day in the history of the world. We always go the oldest old school of old school we can find. This date, 1917. The NHL is formed with 5 charter members. You've heard of the Montreal Canadiens?
Yes.
You've heard of the Ottawa Senators?
Yes.
You've heard of the Montreal Maroons?
I have not.
You've heard of the Toronto Arenas?
Not heard of them either.
And you've heard of the Quebec Bulldogs?
No, I have not.
The interesting thing about the Quebec Bulldogs, I just picked one of these out of random that I'd never heard of. The Quebec Bulldogs popped into the league. They had they started off in 1917. Like I say, in the beginning of this whole thing, we just read the greatest day in the history of the world. They were in the NHL in Quebec as the Bulldogs for 2 years. Then they moved to Hamilton, also in Canada, and became the Hamilton Tigers. They were the Hamilton Tigers for a period of time from 1920 to 1925. Then became, ready for it, the New York Americans. The New York Americans were in the NHL from 1925 to 1942. I have never heard of the New York Americans in my life.
Nor have I.
17 years they played in the NHL, and then the franchise was retired in 1942.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's funny for a league that started with all Canadian teams.
Mm-hmm.
When was the last time the Canadian team won?
Montreal, early 90s, 1993, I think it was.
I've never been alive to see a Canadian team win the Stanley Cup.
Think about that for a minute.
Insane.
Couple NFL notes. 1961, Jerry Norton of St. Louis becomes the only NFL player to have 4 interceptions in a game twice. Picked off 4 passes, 2 for touchdowns. Cardinals beat the Steelers 30-27.
Why do you keep throwing it to his side of the field? We had this conversation about somebody last week, the week before, who had, was it 6 interceptions or something crazy like that?
Quit throwing at him.
At some point, clearly, he's got you scouted. Stop throwing his way. There's another side of the field.
If nothing else, it's his day.
Run the ball. Do something different.
Stay away from him. Wow. And Jerry, I didn't have time to look up the great Jerry Norton, who, by the way, has a pretty good record. When I looked it up, I found this, Jerry Norton's products, flipping mastery.
Okay.
I guess he's a house flipper.
Let's see.
Not this guy, but the football player I did not find at this point. You look him up.
It looks like he actually ended his career as a punter. We talked about this the other day where guys would, like quarterbacks and stuff, would eventually become punters later on in their career. He spent his last 2 years in the league with Green Bay where he was only used as a punter.
Hung on. Being a punter. Interesting. It feels like that in like the early days of the NFL. It was almost like, you want to hang in the league? Can you punt?
I guess
you ever kick the ball there, bub?
Yeah, it's before they put you out to pasture, they see how good you can kick the ball.
See if you can punt it, baby. 1989, Willie Flipper Anderson, a solid wide receiver in the NFL for a bit of time. He was with the Rams. Flipper Anderson sets an NFL record, 336 receiving yards on 15 catches in an overtime win over the Saints. 15 grabs, 336 yards for Flipper Anderson. That was that Rams team that could never get past the 49ers.
That
never could.
That's a double of Randy Moss's Thanksgiving game.
Yes. Man, Randy Moss was so good. Just stupid how good he was. 1995, Dan Marino sets an NFL record with his 343rd touchdown pass. On this day in 1999, a really good NHL player, Hall of Famer Steve Yzerman, scores his 600th career goal for the Detroit Red Wings. Now he's an excellent front office guy, GM. Built the Florida Panthers up. I think now he's back with his with the Red Wings. 2010, UConn defeats Howard, 82nd straight win, setting an NCAA women's record for consecutive victories. 2010, some dude named Cam Newton passed for 3 touchdown passes, runs for another. This was a huge game, rallying number 2 Auburn over number 9 Bama. Remember, they were down big at the half and came back and won that game 28-27.
Were they down 24-0?
I believe it was 24-0 at the half.
I remember that. God, that for anybody that didn't get to see it, there's been plenty of great players in college football, and obviously you can go back farther with what you've seen compared to what I've seen, but I don't think there's ever been a player more dominant than Cam Newton.
For one season. Coming in for one season.
A man among boys. I mean, again, he was bigger than the linebackers trying to tackle him.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wanted any of that. He threw the ball well. He ran it. I mean, that Auburn team didn't put a lot of guys in the NFL.
The stat was one of the tackles.
Nick Fairley, a defensive tackle.
No, on the offense.
Oh, the offense.
One of the offensive tackles had 1 start in the NFL. That was the only other member of that offense to ever play at the next level.
Yeah, the only other guy that had any kind of skill, remember Michael Dyer, the running back on that team.
Yeah.
And he never played in the NFL.
He didn't because he hung around college for 12 more years. He ended up at Louisville.
No.
They played Georgia in the Belk Bowl years later. I'm like, wait, Michael Dyer's still playing college football? Which, hey, heads up on him for not stopping on that run under a minute to go in the national championship. Mm-hmm. That's what propelled them to win the game.
Yeah,
He
absolutely.
wasn't down.
He was not down. Defensively, Nick Fairley was a first-round pick, if my memory serves, Detroit Lions.
Yeah, he and Sue were on the same Lions teams.
So there wasn't a lot of guys from that Auburn team that ended up playing in the NFL.
And if you took insert random average quarterback, that was probably a 6-6 team, maybe.
And they won a national championship.
Crazy.
That's how dominant Cam Newton was in one season in college.
Literally put the entire team on his back.
It was just unreal. And think about that comeback against Bama. You're dead in the water at halftime.
I bet that was the last season that Alabama lost 3 games in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
That was the 3rd game.
Oh, until this year.
Till this year.
Who's the head coach this year? Nick?
It's not.
No.
Some guy named Kalen.
Yeah, that guy.
Kalick.
By the way, last one, 2005. Here's a kooky one. Florida International ties an NCAA record by returning 4 interceptions for touchdowns in a rout over Florida Atlantic. Stop throwing the ball.
Just run.
Stop.
FAU. Just run the dang ball.
Stop throwing the ball. Anyway, that's a great day in the history of the world. We'll come back. Firehouse Subtext the hour. Get you ready for the post-game show live from Cato's Power Equipment, Beltline Boulevard in Columbia. Go out there and register for tickets for South Carolina Clemson this Saturday. Also the South Carolina Clemson men's basketball game and South Carolina Clemson baseball. You can win all that, but you got to register at Cato's today and tomorrow at the Nest 12 to 3 in the Vista. Halftime show, Firehouse Subtext the hour. Next, Rivalry Week, sponsored by our buddies at Columbia Craft all week long here on the game. Tonight, Carolina calls 6 o'clock with Shane. He's everywhere today.
He is. Got to kind of shuffle things around. As great as Backstreets is, I don't know if anybody's going to be there on Thanksgiving.
You don't think Thanksgiving spread at Backstreets?
I don't know if Mrs. Beamer would love the idea of, hey, I know we're celebrating the family, but I'm going to go take some calls down at Backstreets for an hour.
Yeah, probably a smart move.
Yeah, how about you stay? How about you stay here?
There's certain hills in life to die on.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. So tonight, Carolina calls at 6 with Todd and Shane. Again, that's 6 o'clock tonight. We do have sports on Thanksgiving.
We do.
The women are taking on Iowa State. 12:30 pregame, 1 o'clock tip, and then Thanksgiving night we'll have some NFL football.
Yes, I think it's great that the NFL has positioned a game in the middle of the day so we can all take a nap while the Cowboys and the Giants play, because there's not a whole lot of value in that game. Nobody asked for that.
No. And, someone said, they're expecting a great matchup between Dak Prescott and Daniel Jones. Why are you involving the name Daniel Jones in a great matchup? That's not a great matchup.
Yeah, that was that's like the when the opening act is kind of better than the main act. So say so-and-so and then whoever else. Like, well, really only interested in the opener. No, but stay around with the other guy. He's great too. Yeah, I've seen him. He's not good.
No. We'll have Dolphins-Packers.
That should be
the night game. Especially with Tua back in Miami. Now
Yeah.
the Dolphins all of a sudden can run offense again. It's bizarre. And, again, the Packers have been playing really well. Look, they smacked a 49er team that is not anywhere near full strength yesterday. They're just, starting Brandon Allen at quarterback. So, early in the day on Thanksgiving, you have Bears-Lions. Bears are playing just well enough to lose. That game might be interesting.
Yeah,
maybe.
That's my question: is how are the Bears going to narrowly lose this game?
Yeah. Exactly. All right, so that's Thanksgiving. We're only carrying Dolphins-Packers. Again, women's basketball, 12:30 pregame, 1 o'clock tip against a dangerous-ish Iowa State team. All right, Firehouse Up, text the hour, 803-404-6100. What do you got, man?
Speaking of Carolina calls, I feel like it's a good time to address this. I've been asked the question, am I Tyler from Spartanburg? My legal team says I'm not allowed to say.
Cannot speak of that. Court documents are not sealed.
Now, if Dabo wanted to open up to callers on his radio show again.
Which for some reason doesn't happen anymore.
It's weird, kind of after, or I think, did they let it run the rest of the year and then shut it off? Or did they do it the next week? I can't remember. I can't believe it's been over a year since this happened, by the way.
I know.
That was Halloween week of last year.
Yeah.
I feel like it was just yesterday.
I know. And then Clemson went on a run. Remember?
They did.
Everything was all.
Well, and that's where the tinfoil hats came out. It's like, and again, we work in this business. Typically, your call screener, producer, whoever's handling the phone calls would have shut Tyler from Spartanburg off way sooner than they allowed him to go in on the head coach on his coach's show. So it leads you to believe that maybe that was manufactured.
I will say this. I am not a conspiracy theorist guy at all, but every now and then, being in this business my whole life and being in sports talk radio for a long time, that phone call gets cut.
Yeah, if you're
very quick.
If you call in to Beamer's show tonight and try and run on him like that, you're going to get shut off pretty quickly.
Really
I promise
fast.
you. Yes.
First of all, that guy's caught in the screener process and doesn't get on the air usually.
Typically, but sometimes people will
okie dokie
get around that. Hey, I'm going to tell them talk about this, talk about that, and
then attack.
You get in and then you attack. But yeah,
you're going quick.
Typically, you're gone pretty quick.
The reason that got through they have these two-step authentications now.
Sure.
If you get through the two-step screening process and start lambasting the coach, you're gone quick. The fact that phone call was left to linger the way it did, so Dabo could give that response that he did.
Because he set him up perfectly.
Yes.
Because, again, the whole message of Dabo's answer was, we've been winning 10-plus games every single year the past 12 years, and y'all don't appreciate it. Maybe I'll go somewhere else. And then what are you going to be stuck with then, huh? I got 2 national championships. We talked about it earlier. Now that Mac Brown's gone, he and Kirby are the only 2 active head coaches with national championships, and the people in the upstate, again, when you're just new to the winning, as he talked about, it's great. It's fun. It's exciting. But then it becomes, well, we could do better than this. You only won 11 games.
Right.
You only won the ACC championship. Come on, where's the national championship?
man.
You get spoiled. You get spoiled real fast.
It felt like, and look, I get Dabo's message. I do. I get it. but it was set up perfectly.
Oh, it was a lob for a dunk if I've ever seen one.
That's why I'll put my tinfoil hat on for 1 minute and say that was a setup call. I'll always believe it was a setup call.
That was a staffer or somebody that cuts up the film for the team. Hey, 7:05. Call the show. Here's what you need to say, and we'll let them run for the next 7 minutes.
And then get out of the way.
Get out of the way.
Oh, yeah. To me, I will always feel that way about it.
Surprisingly, they stopped taking phone calls after that.
Very weird. Very weird. Oh, man. I get his message. And Dabo's not wrong with the whole, wait a minute, the expectation gets a little sideways at times. But that's part of being really successful is there's expectations. Now, there's always going to be a small percentage of your fan base that is out of control with their expectation.
Sure.
But Dabo got his message out thanks to that random caller from Spartanburg.
Not at liberty to say.
All right, we appreciate the Firehouse Up Text the Hour like always. Up next, post-game show live from Cato's Power Equipment. That is next here on the game. Good job, Tyler from Spartanburg.
3 o'clock. Nope. 3 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. Welcome aboard the postgame show. Sorry, my headset was off. I knew I was talking.
Off to a marvelous start.
Yeah, thank you. I knew I was talking, and I couldn't hear myself because I didn't have my volume turned up. And then I got nervous.
Got scared.
Yeah.
I heard you just fine.
Thanks. Yeah, and everybody else did, too. He's Elijah. I'm Jay.
They just heard your fear.
We're at Cato's, which typically I wouldn't have to worry about my headset volume, but when we're on remote, I do. And Ben and I were just I'm in here. When you come into a place like this for people like me that enjoy doing their own yard work, it's like a toy store kind of a feel. Like when you were a kid, you're like, oh, I want that. Oh, I need that. Oh, I want that.
I saw you get your filthy mitts on a lot of things.
I have. And I was just asking Ben if he has like those long, and of course the answer was yes. I don't even know why I asked. But like the really long hedge trimmer, like not the one that's like, 18 inches, like the big Hoss. I said that looks like one of those things like a gladiator would use.
Okay. Yeah.
And they got that. So I could use one of those at my house.
Lightsaber length.
The Gravely EV, like the zero turn here, like the one that I said I wanted to like walk behind or like stand on. It's not walk behind. It's like stand on, like a Star Wars thing. And then Ben comes like riding in with it. Yeah, there it is. See, he's got a big one right there. We'll show it to you. But welcome aboard. Lots to get to here on a Brews Day edition of the show. Ryan will join us in just a little bit. He is with family. Out of town.
Like most of us.
Parts unknown, somewheres else. But will be joining us shortly from there to discuss the win over Wofford, the game with Clemson. Shane and Dabo both speaking today, both speaking nicely of one another.
Very nicely.
Which is good. This is the biggest game in the rivalry in 11 years, so there's that. In that amount of time, I think South Carolina, they won the 2013 game, but they've only won once since then.
That's for the first time since 2012 they've met in Death Valley as ranked
teams, yeah.
And if you go on our Twitter page at 1075 The Game, we took a little trip down memory lane for that game.
Nice. Well, 2012 of the 5-game win streak, and the first one could mean the most to you, or any of them could, but 12 stands out because of, again, really, I mean, to me anyway, the Dylan Thompson play. I just, that's to me, I will always call that the Dylan Thompson game. Again, he wasn't supposed to play that night. That was supposed to be Connor's job, but Connor got hurt against Wofford, which is why you shouldn't play these games. But they do, and that's not going to change, I don't think. So, but check that out. And a whole lot more, but we're looking forward to it. The line has not moved today. I wonder if it's holding here the rest of the way at 2.5.
I think that'll probably change the closer we get.
Well, there's still a lot of people that and I don't know if it starts to make Gamecock fans nervous or not. Like J.D. Piquel is back. Congrats to J.D. He can't hear us, but congrats to J.D. and Mrs. Piquel on the birth of their first child. And he was away last week.
Very nice.
But he was back on his show today, and he has picked South Carolina to win the football game. I saw Pat Forty's predictions today. He has picked South Carolina to win the football game. Told you yesterday about Ari Wasserman, like not even – less than zero hesitation, if that's a real thing, on taking the money line for South Carolina, which I think, what did I say, it was like plus 115 or plus 135?
I think it's plus 133 or something like that yesterday.
Okay. So there's that. Again, does that make Carolina fans nervous? I'm not sure. I think I told you this yesterday, and I know I was talking to a friend of mine this morning about it. Yeah, I know we talked about it yesterday, and I said if you can grade these teams out at their, on a 0 to 100 scale for each of them for what they do and how well they could do it, that if they were to both grade out at, say, an A-, a 90, 92, just throwing out hypothetical numbers, but each of them plays to that relative number for what they do, then I think South Carolina is the better football team and wins the football game. That's what I, especially with how South Carolina has been playing in the last month and a half relative to what we've seen from Clemson. South Carolina's 4 road games, 3 of them were I don't know if I should say blowouts or not, but I mean, you beat Kentucky easily on the road. You beat Oklahoma easily on the road. You beat Vanderbilt easily. And when I say easily, you beat them with a definitive margin of victory. Easy is not.
Vanderbilt by 3 touchdowns. Oklahoma, you were up by 3 touchdowns with 5 minutes going into the that 8 or 9 minute mark of the first quarter. And then Kentucky, I think, learned pretty early on in that game they were not moving that football.
And I know in the Kentucky and Oklahoma games, South Carolina had defensive scores, but nevertheless, in 3 of your 4 road games, you won decisively. And in the loss, it was the game at Alabama where you had a chance to tie the game with a 2-pointer, didn't make it. You had obviously a costly turnover late, but you still had the ball with a chance to kick and win. Now, granted, that was, a near 60-yard kick, I think. I forget how far that was. But
yeah, out of Alex's range.
Yeah. And nowhere close. But nevertheless, a shot, right? So I just think, South Carolina is going to feel, hostile road environments are not a concern for us between the ears. And we've proven this season that we can play well away from home. There's a lot to like there, whereas Clemson had, they lost a neutral game early, and they lost a home game. That's it.
Yeah.
So there's just opportunity there for South Carolina. But look, if Klubnik has the game of his life, if Maffa goes off for 150 or more, all bets are off. If you make Lenoris nervous and cause him to turn the football over, if Clemson has, I think to borrow from Tommy Moody, this probably might come down to a game where it's about turnovers. And if Clemson is plus turnovers, that may well be to their advantage.
Shane definitely today made an emphasis to talk about turning the ball over, or forcing turnovers on Clemson's side. Because I asked, this is a Clemson offense. They're rushing for almost 200 yards a game. They run the ball really well. And if I'm Dabo, I'm looking at that Missouri game. I'm looking at that Missouri game and seeing how they're able to move the ball with having one running back alone run for $150. Mm-hmm. Say, how can we replicate that? A lot of stretch plays, a lot of outside zone. So what's South Carolina going to have to do to be able to make sure that Clemson doesn't smother the game out on the ground and make sure that they don't run what would be 75 to 80 plays and tire out the South Carolina defense, which is South Carolina's advantage. Their edge rushers are the advantage in this game. You can take them out by just not having to pass the ball as much, by being able to move the ball on the ground, and maybe, just maybe, get them tired to make Carolina rely on that depth on the defensive line in the fourth quarter. So when I asked Shane about that, how they can avoid that, he definitely mentioned turnovers, but he mentioned how good this Clemson team is at protecting the ball. They're top 3. He said they're top 3 in the country in turnover margin, and that they've had less than a turnover per game, and that's pretty significant, because the one thing you can't do against this Carolina team is give up good field position, especially the way that Carolina can run the football and the way they've run the football against some pretty good defenses. If you're Clemson, I would be, the last thing you need to do is commit a turnover, because Carolina, and we've seen from that sudden change metric that Seth Emerson has cited in The Athletic, that Carolina's really good at that sudden change and turning those turnovers into points and being just really advantageous. So the turnover thing is something that's even in the forefront of Shane Beamer's mind right now, because he knows that if they're able to punch a ball out from Phil Maffa, or be able to get Cade Klubnik down the ground and maybe punch a ball out, easier said than done, because those are some fantastic athletes, that's going to give them a really good shot at winning this football game.
We'll have a lot from Shane throughout the course of the afternoon for you. And again, Ryan Brewer coming up in just a little bit. Let me remind you once again that Elijah and I are broadcasting live at Cato's Power Equipment, 4012 West Beltline Boulevard, where they have been since the 1980s, the early 1980s. I mean, a long time.
It is. That predates me.
But why am I telling you the physical address? You need to get out here today. Come by and see